Dude, let's get serious about Colossus, because he's one of the biggest headaches in the Marvel Universe. And I'm not talking about the villains he faces, I'm talking about us, the nerds who try to dissect the logic behind superpowers. In a classic comic, the Hulk, in a fit of rage, bends his arms like they're made of wet wire. Years later, in a movie, a sentinel from the future, a cold and calculating machine, simply tears him in half like he's a metal twig. And then, out of nowhere, in the Deadpool movies, he emerges as an almost invulnerable war tank, a pillar of morality who can take any kind of beating and still has time to complain that Wade Wilson doesn't wash the dishes. What's this guy's deal anyway? How strong and durable is he really? And what the hell is that dent in his head that just won't go away? We're going to answer all this and much more. Comment below which version of Colossus you think is the most badass, the classic X-Men one or Deadpool's, because today we're not just talking about power. We're putting on the lab coat, grabbing the adamantium scalpel, and doing a complete autopsy on Marvel's toughest yet gentlest mutant. And seriously, the biology behind that steel body is much more bizarre, complex, and frankly, contradictory than you might imagine. Hang tight, because we're diving deep into the mystery of Piotr Rasputin, the steel giant with a poet's soul. But before we dive into the steel, it's essential, it's crucial, that we talk about the man behind the armor. Because damn, it's precisely this duality that makes Colossus such a badass three-dimensional character. Beneath that mountain of organic metal is Pyotr Nikolaevich Rasputin, a kid from a collective farm in Siberia, Ustordinsky. He grew up in a simple environment, working the land, with strong family and community values. His true passion wasn't fighting, wasn't showing off strength, it was art. He was a talented painter, an artist with a sensitivity that brutally contrasted with his monstrous appearance. His soul is the complete opposite of his armored form. He's not Wolverine, who's a wild animal inside and out, always ready for a fight. He's not the Thing, who lives bitter and resentful of his rocky condition. Piotr is, at his core, a good guy, a natural protector, an older brother who would do anything to protect his little sister, Ilyana, the Magik. Honestly, I think his organic steel armor isn't just physical protection against bullets and missiles. It's, above all, an emotional barrier. It's the impenetrable shell he uses to navigate a world that he, in his essence, finds violent, chaotic, and frightening. He's the guy who goes to the front line of combat, the unshakable pillar of the X-Men, but who, in his spare time, is in a quiet corner of the X-Mansion, with an easel and brushes, trying to capture the beauty of a landscape. It's this soul that controls the machine. It's this sensitive mind that activates the brutal transformation. Without understanding Piotr, we'll never truly understand Colossus. Now let's put on the mad scientist coat and talk about the transformation itself, starting with the comic book version, which is the most insane and scientifically implausible of all. Forget real-world logic. Piotr's mutation isn't just getting tough skin or gaining armor. It's a process of matter transmutation at the atomic level, directly controlled by his willpower. In technical terms, it's a psionic ability. His brain, with a mental command, functions as a quantum interface, opening a connection to what Marvel guides describe as another dimension. From this dimension, he pulls an organic form of osmium, one of the densest transition metals that exist in our reality, and uses this extra-dimensional matter to replace, atom by atom, all the carbon and other elements in his body. Think about the absurdity of this for a second. He ceases to be a carbon-based life form. Flesh, bone, blood, internal organs, the fluid in his eyes, everything, absolutely everything, converts into this unique metallic substance. That's freaking sinister. He becomes, in practice, an alien life form, a conscious metal statue that, miraculously, maintains all its mobility and agility. It's because of this explanation that, in many classic stories, he doesn't need to breathe, eat, or drink. He doesn't have a functioning carbon digestive system or lungs. He's a closed system, a self-sufficient organism, an almost perfect biological war machine, powered by an energy we still don't fully understand. The big debate in fan forums has always been about mass. If he transforms into a super dense metal, shouldn't he become much heavier and sink into the ground? The official explanation is that, yes, his weight almost doubles, going from about 250 pounds in human form to over 500 pounds in armored form, but his strength increases exponentially, compensating for this gain. Another fan theory that I think is cool is that the transformation not only exchanges atoms, but also reorganizes his molecular structure into an almost perfect crystalline matrix, eliminating empty spaces and making him dense, without necessarily adding overwhelming mass from another dimension. He becomes more efficient, not just heavier. Plus, his height also increases by about a foot, going from 6'6" to about 7'6". This suggests a complete expansion and reorganization of his body structure, and the transformation is almost instantaneous, but requires a moment of concentration. Once transformed, he can maintain this form for days, but if he's knocked out or becomes unconscious, he automatically reverts to his vulnerable human form. This is a huge tactical weakness. Enemies like Juggernaut don't necessarily need to break him. They just need to knock him out to win the fight. It's a system flaw that keeps him, despite all his power, dangerously human. But then, we leave the relatively consistent world of comics and dive into cinema, and that's where directors seem like they never talked to each other or read the same source material. Things become a real chronological and conceptual mess. In X2, in his first glorious appearance to protect the students, the transformation is visually strange. It looks like they dipped actor Daniel Cudmore in a bucket of chrome paint. The hair stays normal, the eyes too. The impression is that it's just a superficial metallic shell, a bio-armor. But if it were just the skin, how the hell would he have the super strength to throw armed soldiers around like rag dolls? The normal human bone and muscle structure would simply shatter with that effort. Then, in X-Men, The Last Stand, they try to fix this inconsistency. Now the hair and eyes turn to metal too. Okay, a step in the right direction, more consistent. But the definitive proof, the final point in the discussion, comes in Days of Future Past. When that sentinel from the future, a mutant killing machine, grabs him and tears him in half with frightening coldness, we see the inside. And there's no flesh, no bone, no organs. It's solid metal, bright and uniform inside and out. That scene, even being quick and brutal, shut everyone up and confirmed. In Fox's cinematic universe, at least from that point, the transformation was total, a complete and terrifying conversion, exactly like in the comics. And then, when we thought we understood everything, Deadpool comes along and kicks the logic bucket with both legs in an absolutely spectacular way. Tim Miller and David Leitch's Colossus, now with the voice and presence of Stefan Kapicic, is, visually, the most perfect and faithful Colossus to the comics we've ever seen on screen. The colossal size, the design with the classic stripes, the flat-top haircut, everything screams Piotr Rasputin. But in terms of biology and physiology, he's the most contradictory and, in my opinion, the most fascinating of all. First, the most bizarre and humanizing detail. He needs to eat. He lectures Deadpool about breakfast being the most important meal of the day. He keeps food in labeled containers in the X-Mansion fridge. Dude, if his body is a solid mass of extra-dimensional organic metal, what the hell does he need nutrients for? Does he have a metallic digestive system that processes yogurt and cereal? And where does that food go? Seriously, even his poop must be metal. This choice, while breaking comic book logic, serves a brilliant narrative purpose. It anchors him in reality. It makes him more like a guy, a giant, straight-laced roommate, than an impenetrable metal god. It's a decision that sacrifices scientific consistency for comedy and character development, and damn, it works really well. And it doesn't stop with food. The need to breathe is another major change. When Angel Dust is choking him with a steel cable in Deadpool, he's visibly suffocating, his metal eyes widening in desperation for air. This humanizes the character in a badass way, but it's a direct contradiction with many of his comic book versions. This vulnerability makes him more relatable. He's not invincible, he can be subdued, and the question of damage? That's the key point. The scars. Wolverine's skin is torn and heals perfectly in seconds. Colossus gets dented, and the dent stays. That mark on his head, the dozens of scratches all over his body, they're not computer graphics errors, they're battle scars. Each mark tells the story of a fight. He doesn't regenerate instantly. His healing, as the old Marvel guide suggests and the Deadpool movies show, is close to human speed. If he dents his arm, the arm will stay dented. This gives incredible weight to each fight. He doesn't walk into a fight with his chest out and come out unscathed like Superman. He comes out marked. He's a tank, yes, but a tank that shows every battle in its body, every dent and every scratch, is a medal of honor and a reminder of his mortality. But let's talk numbers, because nerds who are nerds love to quantify the impossible. How strong is he? In the comics, he's a solid class 100, which is a Marvel category, meaning he can lift more than 100 tons without even breaking a sweat. He's exchanged punches toe-to-toe with heavyweights like The Thing, She-Hulk, Gladiator, and even weakened versions of Juggernaut and Hulk. His strength doesn't just come from the metallic musculature, but from the perfect structural integrity of his body. When he transforms, his entire body becomes a single, monolithic piece of organic metal. He's like an indestructible human lever. His tendons don't tear, his bones don't break under pressure, and it's this combination of brute strength and absurd durability that allows one of Marvel's most iconic and badass maneuvers, the fastball special. He grabs Wolverine, who with his adamantium skeleton weighs about 300 pounds, and throws him like a living, furious cannonball. The G-force generated in this throw is astronomical. and the fact that his hand isn't torn to pieces by Wolverine's claws in the process shows how resistant his organic steel is. Beyond strength, he has superhuman stamina. His metal musculature produces far fewer fatigue toxins than a human muscle, allowing him to exercise at peak maximum for several days in a row before feeling the effects of tiredness. Being strong doesn't mean squat if you're made of glass, and Colossus definitely isn't made of glass. His durability is insane, almost legendary. His armored form makes him practically immune to conventional injuries. He can withstand temperatures ranging from -380 degrees Fahrenheit, near absolute zero, to peaks of almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the surface of the sun. He can take a tank shot to the chest and barely feel the impact. He resists ballistic penetration from virtually any known firearm, artillery explosions, and high-velocity impacts, like being hit by a high-speed truck. But he has weaknesses, and his weaknesses are the two most badass metals in the Marvel Universe, vibranium and adamantium. Think of it this way: adamantium, especially the primary adamantium of Captain America's shield or the one coating Wolverine's bones, is the only thing that can actually cut him. It acts at the molecular level, separating the bonds of his organic steel. It's the perfect diamond knife to cut the metal stake. Wakanda's vibranium is different. It doesn't cut, it neutralizes. The main property of vibranium is to absorb all vibrational and kinetic energy. A punch with all of Colossus's strength on Captain America's shield would be like punching a wall of quantum foam. All his strength would be absorbed and dissipated, making it useless. These weaknesses don't diminish the character. On the contrary, they make him more tactical and interesting. Now, if you think lifting 100 tons and withstanding a tank shot is the peak of Colossus's power, you're very wrong. Because there was a time in the comics when he wasn't just a war tank, he became a walking natural calamity. During the Fear Itself saga, the original Juggernaut, Cain Marko, was abandoned by his patron god, Sidorak, and chosen to be one of the worthy of the Serpent, Asgard's god of fear. With Juggernaut out of the game and a new super-powered Juggernaut threatening to destroy the X-Men and the world, Colossus, Magik, and Kitty Pryde make a desperate journey to Sidorak's dimension. And there, Piotr makes the ultimate sacrifice. To obtain the power necessary to stop the threat, he offers to become Sidorak's new avatar. He became the new Juggernaut. Imagine the internal conflict: the gentle artist, the sensitive soul, the guy who prefers to paint rather than fight, being the host of a force of pure, chaotic, and unstoppable destruction. It was an absurd sacrifice that haunted him for years. And his power level, damn, it went to another stratosphere. He combined his organic steel mutation with the chaotic magic and theoretically infinite strength of the Juggernaut. He became one of the most powerful creatures on Earth, capable of fighting toe-to-toe with the Serpent. It was the biggest upgrade and, at the same time, the greatest curse of his life, a power that almost consumed him completely. So, at the end of the day, after all this analysis, who is Colossus? He's the artist, the farmer, the protective brother, the loyal X-Man, the team's war tank, the frustrated lover, and even for a time, a mass destruction monster driven by a demonic entity. He is living proof that the greatest strength is not in the metal that coats the body, but in the indomitable will of who controls it. His biology is a contradictory chaos, a mess that changes according to who's telling the story, whether in comics or in cinema. But his essence, his core, is always the same. A good man with a giant heart, trying to do the right thing, with a power that is both terrible and magnificent. And this brings us to the final question, the reflection that defines the character. After analyzing all this, what do you think is Colossus's greatest and most real weakness? Is it the adamantium that can cut him to pieces? Is it the magical and overwhelming strength of the Juggernaut? Or is it the fact that, beneath all that layer of impenetrable steel, he still has a human heart that can be broken, that feels the pain of loss, that loves, that suffers, and that, above all, sacrifices itself? What do you think is more vulnerable in him? The steel that the world sees, or the soul that he fights so hard to protect? Leave your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.